in that residential district, the school district may assign the child to another public school in another school district. So if your school district does not have a school for certain grades, your school district can contract with another school district to send those students to a school in that district. What this bill does is to add non-religious private school, which has been approved by, and there will be amendment coming in executive, I'll pass that now, which has been approved for attendance by the Department of Education to the list of acceptable schools a school district may contract with. Isn't it up to the local school district and their taxpayers to determine what's best for their students? There was a Superior Court case on November 30th last year whereby the DOE, for the Attorney General, was seeking an injunction on Croydon and to immediately remove those students from the private school and place them in the public school. I was present at that court case. The judge ruled in favor of Croydon. There will be a court case on this whole issue in March. This bill has nothing to do with that court case, but just to make it clear in the law to maybe prevent future cases. I do have an amendment, like I mentioned, to change the approved school to approve for attendance. So if you look at the bill, that's all it has. Here are some of the requirements that a non-public school approved for attendance must follow. And it's in, there's no law on approved, it just said approved for attendance, for approval. But the rules, the DOE has made rules for approved for attendance. And it's in ED 403, approval of non-public schools for attendance purposes. Programs of study or other documents that explain academic control, assessment processes, and promotion requirements for each grade level, and high school diploma requirements if applicable. Resume or curriculum vitae of each staff member, including formal education, professional experience, special life experiences, etc. A brief description of the school supporting services. Health, guidance, library services, food service, referral services, transportation services, including school field trips, extracurricular activities. So it sounds a lot like what is required of public schools. So there are a lot of people going to testify also, so I will continue with that. So I will be open to any questions.
Just for clarification for Representative, we do have a copy of your amendment here, 0506.
No, I have a different one.
Oh, you have a different one, because this is Representative Edelblu's.
Right, Edelblu's have a, he'll speak on that.
Okay, you have an amendment also?
Yes, I have it. It's right there on top if you want to.
Okay, so what we will do is, do you have copies made available?
Yes.
All right, that's what we're looking for the clerk.
Yeah, I have the clip.
And then we'll have those distributed. Thank you, Representative.
Yeah.
So those
Like I
six.
said, mine is pretty much just change it to say approved for attendance, which was a recommendation of the legal firm that is representing Croydon.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Representative Owen?
He doesn't.
Yes, Representative Grenier?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative, for taking the questions. Oftentimes, we say you can't use public funds for a private school. And I'm gonna read this part of statute for you to comment on. This is 186C:10, responsibility of school districts. This is relative to special ed or disability students. A school district shall establish an approval program for programs for children with disabilities, or shall enter into cooperative agreements with other districts to provide approved programs for children with disabilities, or shall tuition to such an approved program maintained by another school district or by a private organization.
Yeah, that's one of the issues we have, is it's somewhat discriminatory where we can send schools, students that have an IEP or some kind of disability to a private school. We can also attend, if the school is on the border with another state, we can send, and they don't have a school, they can send their students to a private school in the other state. But we can't send to a private school in our own state. And that's here we can do it for some students and not other students, and that's where I think some of the issue comes up.
Are there further questions for the representative? Thank you very much. I'd like to call forward Representative Frank Edelblut.
This is Frank Edelblut. He's a candidate for governor of New Hampshire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Frank Edelblut, representing Hillsborough District 38. What we're witnessing in this situation is really just a bureaucracy that, in this particular circumstance, has lost sight of its public mission. We have, in this circumstance, responsible adults on the school board who are acting in the best interest of the children to ensure that each child receives the best education that they can. We have engaged parents who are working with the school board and with the school officials to find options that will allow their children to reach their best potential. We have children who are responding to the opportunities that are presented to them and are growing and are learning and are thriving. The Department of Education, in its actions, has not disputed that the parties in this matter are acting responsibly. The Department of Education in this matter has not disputed that the children are thriving or that the children are receiving the kind of education that are going to allow them to succeed in life. The Department of Education is not acting to protect the interests of the children, but to protect the interests of the bureaucracy. They've lost sight of the reason for their existence under these circumstances. So nothing in the statutes allows the Department of Education to make the assertions over the control of the children that they are making. But that has not stopped them from continuing to make these assertions. The purpose of this bill simply is to clarify the law and make it crystal clear so that we can all get on with the business of educating our children the best we can, which is something that we all share. And I believe that the bill as presented is adequate to clarify the law so that we might move on and focus on the education of our children, but not wanting to leave any stone unturned and to make sure that this becomes crystal clear, I have provided for you an amendment, which was just recently passed around, and I've submitted. And I just add one clarifying sentence to two places in our statute. One is in section RSA 194.22, which is dealing with high schools, and the other is in section RSA 189-1A, dealing with school boards and the duty to provide education. And that amendment basically states, so that it's clear for everybody, however you understand the obligations and responsibilities of everyone else, notwithstanding any provision of the law to the contrary, a school board may make a contract with any non-religious private school to provide for the education of a pupil who resides in the school district of the school board, if the school board decides it is in the best interest of the pupil, and may raise and appropriate money for the purpose of that contract. The goal here is local control of education. We want to make sure we put the statutes, that the statutes recognize local control and put school boards in charge of the education of the students in that district. And that's what we're trying to make sure is, again, I believe it already exists in statute, but this will make it crystal clear and avoid some of the problems that Croydon and potentially other schools are going to experience as we have a shrinking student population. We're going to find more and more towns in a situation of having not enough students and trying to find creative ways to make sure that those students get educated into the future. So we need to make this change now so that we don't continue to see this problem come up again in the future. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Representative. Are there questions? Representative Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question, Representative. Is it because of the discriminatory blame clause in our Constitution that you specifically put non-religious in this amendment?
That is what is in the statutory language right now, so I just copy that and I continue to carry forward that statutory language. If you wanted to change that, then you're welcome to take a look at that. But that would be beyond the scope of what we're arguing today, I think. So.
Okay, Representative Bergeron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking the question. Okay, so I'm just looking at this very quickly. Does your amendment mean that even school districts that have a school may choose to send one of their students to another school out of district?
Yeah, so really,
non-IEP student. So any student could be sent anywhere out of district if the school board determined that that was in the best interest of the student.
it could be in district, or it could be out of district.
Okay.
What we need is we have school boards acting in the best interest of the children. So it seems unusual that a school district that has a public school
Right.
is going to capriciously or arbitrarily take students out of the school which they are responsible for and say, we don't want them to go to the school that we're supervising, we want to send them to some other school, unless there are a certain set of circumstances that would require them to do that. But I mean, certainly, that would be at the discretion of the school board to decide that it's in the best interest of that child to attend somewhere else.
Okay, I understand. So if I understand that correctly, your amendment actually does go considerably further than the original amendment. Because the original amendment talks about school districts that do not have a school. And you're saying that even if you have a school, the school district may send its money out of the school district for the benefit of that child.
Correct.
So it is going quite a bit further than the original.
So it is for the benefit of the child, but it's not going further than the statutes that exist already, because we already know today that if you have a special needs student, if you have an IEP, that student can be tuition out of that school district, and so that's already happening. And so what we're doing is, we're saying that authority extends to the school board, and we're clarifying it. I believe it already exists in statute, because they can tuition students outside of that school district or private schools. And so we're basically just clarifying in the statute that that is the authority that the school board has.
Well,
Yes.
I will, I'll just say that's not my understanding. The current statute, my understanding is it applies only to IEP students if you have your own student. And the reason for that is, I would presume, that IEP students need special treatment that the school district is not readily able to give. Your amendment says that a student who doesn't have need any special treatment may still be sent out of the district. So it is an expansion of who may be sent out of the district in the case where there is a school in that district that the student should be going to. Right now, it's limited to IEP students for good reason. You're saying it should be available to all students. I understand why you may be, but I just want to be clear that this is that expansion.
So again, I believe that the ability to do that already exists if there's not a school. So again, we've got.
If there's not a school.
If there's not a school.
But my first question was, does your bill apply where there is a school?
It does, but my perception is that you're not gonna have a school board member tuitioning students out of their state for no reason, right? Okay.
Representative Grenier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just for clarification, I am talking about the bill that's brought into amendment here, so
Got it.
I'm gonna focus on that first.
Got it.
But I'm not saying what you need to do, that's my question. Given that DOE has to try to act on the will of the legislature and conceding that in doing so, it's difficult, then with that in mind, would you not agree that it is this legislature that needs to clarify the inconsistencies? It's not DOE's issue, it's our responsibility now, and that's what we're doing here.
Exactly. I believe that, well, I'll just leave it at exactly, yes.
Questions, Representative Myler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question. Could you please define for me non-religious private school?
So I probably am not the best person to do that, but because that is a term that is in statute already. So whatever the meaning it carries with it in statute now is what we carry forward.
Do you have an interpretation of that?
I think it's self-explanatory. It's non-religious private school. So basically, it's not publicly funded and it's non-religious.
So,
I'll pursue that.
Further
Okay.
questions? Not seeing hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's Jason Osborne.
Like
He's
to welcome forward Aaron McIntyre. Good morning.
Good morning.
if we stay there.
I don't think I put the time down, I only need about 5 minutes. And I do have written testimony which I will provide afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Erin McIntyre. I'm an attorney for the Department of Education. I'm also an attorney for the Department of Justice, and I'm here on behalf of both agencies to provide some information and to identify a few concerns that this committee may want to consider as it reviews this bill. To begin with, I don't have a copy of the amendment, so I am going off of the bill that was presented. And one of the questions or concerns that I had was the definition of approval. It's unclear what is meant by approval in that bill. There are two types of non-public school approval which are outlined in the administrative rules.
Again, that's Frank Edelblut. He's a rep,
ED 403 covers
a,
approval of non-public
candidate
schools
for,
purposes. It requires a
governor
letter
of New Hampshire.
intent to be submitted to the Department of Education. It includes a number of components, however, most of them say brief and are not substantive in nature. ED 404 covers approval of non-public schools for program purposes. ED 40401 little b states that program approval shall be deemed recognition by the state board that a school's curriculum, staffing, administration, governance, and facilities meet an approved third-party standard for the appropriate delivery of education. A series of cases known as the Claremont cases address the issue of adequate education. Claremont 1 court held that the state of New Hampshire is required to provide constitutionally adequate education to every educable child in a public school in New Hampshire. A later Claremont case held that it is the legislator's obligation and not that of an individual member of the school board of education to establish educational standards that comply with constitutional requirements. The legislature has done so in Chapter 193E of New Hampshire laws outlines what is required in order to demonstrate that an adequate education is being provided. RSA 193E:2 provides the criteria for an adequate education. RSA 193E:2 little a provides the substantive educational content of an adequate education, which refers to the minimum standards. RSA 193E3 addresses the delivery of an adequate education. RSA 193E3 little b addresses the accountability for the opportunity for an adequate education. RSA 193E3 little c provides for the development of a performance-based accountability system relative to the public school's duty to provide an adequate education. Further, the administrative rules, ED 300s, outline minimum standards for an adequate education. Private schools are not required to abide by these laws or rules and are not required to demonstrate that the students they receive an adequate education. Therefore,
I'm gonna bail on this meeting. There's people who you could probably go to Free Keen for the rest of the video.